All right, well, welcome everyone to today's Process Mining Academy session. The Vancouver release is now out and generally available, which means we have a whole new set of topics we can do Academy sessions on, which is great because sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge to make a new topic every week or every month. Now, in Vancouver, we took two big steps forward in our mission to provide our customers end-to-end process visibility. We've added the ability to import external process data into the platform and apply our process mining capabilities to it. And we'll be covering that in our next session, currently scheduled for October 20th. So you won't want to miss that one. That's a topic that was in high demand. And this session, right, we've also added coverage for strategic portfolio management, or more commonly known as SPM, to a lot of our customers. This was one of the most asked for enhancements as we've started to discuss process mining with our customers over the last year and a half or so. And we're lucky enough today to have James Ramsay, a product management director in the SPM business unit, with us to help cover the topic. But before we get to James, the main course, right, let's quickly get some of the logistics out of the way. First thing, I just want to mention it once again. I'll probably do this for a couple of sessions, not just for you, but also for me. As of the Vancouver release, process optimization has been renamed to process mining. So you'll start to see inside of in the documentation, in your instances, in the community, everywhere where you would have seen process optimization in the past, you'll start to see the term process mining show up. So just be aware of that when you start searching for things. You can start searching for process mining ServiceNow or ServiceNow process mining. That's the newer content is going to be labeled with that. Now, the purpose of these sessions are to help us all get better educated on ServiceNow's in-platform process mining capabilities. We're going to provide how-tos, practical guidance, use cases, product updates like we're doing today. And as a group, we're just gathered together here to exchange ideas and collaborate so we all continue to get better. How the sessions work: we'll have a scheduled topic that we usually cover for the first 30 minutes or so. Then we open it up for questions on that topic for the session. Then we open it up for questions above and beyond the day's topic, sort of like an office hours. These sessions all get recorded and eventually posted on the community site. It's probably where you found the link to this one. Then finally, when you're posting your questions, put them in the Q&A section. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can live here today. But for situations where we don't have an answer to your question immediately, we follow up and we post an article or something on the community site. And then maybe sometimes we actually use it for future sessions. Now, this is the slide that says anything we say and do here today can't be held against us in the court of law. It's also the slide that says, hey, as part of this conversation, if we make any forward-looking statements about what might be coming in future releases, you should take them as such. Make no decisions based on them whatsoever, because they're always subject to change. And I'm assuming at this point you've read all the fine print. Now, many of you that come before know me. My name is Dan Grady. I'm part of the product management team for our process mining solution here at ServiceNow. But today, we're lucky enough to have a special guest. And James, you want to take a minute just to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Hi, everybody. I'm James Ramsay. I'm part of the product management team for our strategic portfolio management and application portfolio management solutions on the platform. I've been with ServiceNow for the best part of the last 8 years, specifically focused around SPM, and I've sort of been in this industry space for the last 25 years.
Awesome. Thank you, James. We'll hear a lot more from James in just a little bit. Now, what we'll do here today, we'll do a quick process mining 101. Then I'll turn it back over to James to dive deep into process mining for strategic portfolio management. I'll cover some high-level slides. He'll jump into a live demonstration of the solution. Then we'll open it up for your questions. And then we'll wrap up with some additional resources to help you get started above and beyond the session here today. As always, the quick process mining 101 for our newcomers. So with everything we do, there's a designed and desired path in our minds for how it should work and how things should play out, whether it be planning a session like these Academy sessions or a business process. And when you design things, you design for both completeness and efficiency to provide the best experience possible for as many people as possible. Now, unfortunately, what we design isn't always what ends up playing out in reality, right? The reality is that not all work is going to be flowing through the optimal path, and that's going to have a negative impact on the experience that both people requesting service are having, as well as the people that are working the process. Now, identifying what is actually happening within our business processes and then improving them isn't always obvious or easy. What in-platform process mining allows us to do is use the audit log data that is generated as records move through a given workflow on the ServiceNow platform. We use that data to create a visual representation of what is actually happening within the process. And this new level of visibility helps us accelerate our ability to identify inefficiencies, non-conform process activities, and ultimately just improvement opportunities. So process mining gives us the ability to answer process questions that have historically been very challenging for us to answer. So whereas traditional analytics will allow us to answer a lot of the what questions about our processes, process mining helps us answer the why. So things like, where is the process getting stuck? Where is there potentially unnecessary rework happening? Where are things ping-ponging between groups? And where aren't we conforming to the process that we've designed? These are all things that have been historically difficult for us to answer and then act upon, but they're now available in a couple of clicks. And we like to say that process mining is going to get you to the why behind all of your KPIs. And in doing so, it's going to empower everyone involved in the process to make data-driven decisions about which improvements to make. Now, today, James will be helping us understand how process mining's value when we look to apply it to work streams aligned to strategic portfolio management, or SPM. With that, I'll just pass it over to you, James, to kind of take us on the tour.
Thanks, Dan. I'm just going to share my screen.
Sure.
And let's share the slides. Right then. So, as Dan alluded to right at the beginning, over the last 12 or so months, there's been lots of clamour for the ability to apply process mining to strategic portfolio management. And hopefully in the introductory slide, I'll showcase why that is apparent. Now, what we're going to look at first of all is just to bring everybody up to the same level of what strategic portfolio management is and why it's important. So let's start with the why it's important first. And I'm just going to use a quite a well-known quote from Gartner. They're saying by 2025, all those organizations that are engaged in digital transformation activities, they're actually going to find that 70% of the digital investments, those digital initiatives they're trying to deliver, are not going to live up to their expected business applications. And one of the key reasons behind that is the absence of them taking a strategic portfolio management approach. And in essence, the problems come from organizations having a defined strategy of what they want to do, but actually the things that they end up executing and delivering are often not aligned to what they've defined as strategic priorities in the business. So we have on the platform a capability we call strategic portfolio management. Its raison d'etre in terms of what we're trying to achieve is to enable our customers to ensure that they're delivering the right business outcomes, the things that are aligned to their strategic priorities with confidence, by enabling them to align and manage all of their work associated with delivering those strategic initiatives together in one place on the platform. And it's that element of managing all types of work linked to strategy on a single platform which makes the process mining use case particularly important from a ServiceNow context. So if you think about, there's three main pillars from a strategic portfolio management perspective: strategize, which is all around strategic planning; the alignment, which is all about prioritizing all of the requests and all of the work into a roadmap that we're going to deliver on; and then the delivery of the work so that we get the customer, whether that's internal or external, with the right level of value. Now, when I'm talking with customers about strategic portfolio management and how we apply it to their organization, I typically talk about having a connected end-to-end process. So if you think about it, we're looking at end-to-end strategy all the way through to service and delivering value at every stage inside that life cycle, and we're doing that all on the platform. And the aim is to deliver the value to our customers, internal or external, as quickly as possible. And that value is delivered whether we're delivering products, services, applications, or programs of work, whatever that may be. But then what we look at is, well, how do we connect that end to end? How do we connect strategy all the way through to execution, and we close that gap? Now, I'm not going to spend on today's session a long time explaining this particular slide, but hopefully you'll see, as we start from a strategic planning perspective and we link those strategic conversations with our architecture community, that stimulates demand and requests and ideas coming from all over the organization, which we then feed into our alignment processes. As we determine what we want to deliver, that enables us to plan our backlog of work, and that can be anything, whether it's a traditional project, agile work, scaled agile, or a hybrid approach. And ultimately, we then deliver that as quickly as possible. And for technology-driven changes, we're linking and connecting with our service teams through release and change management, and also connecting with our DevOps teams. And ultimately, we're closing the loop by capturing our benefits and our metrics and feeding those into continuous improvements. But the key element of all of that end-to-end process is it's continuous. We continually plan our strategies ahead of changes in market and business priorities. We're continually refining our roadmaps that we're delivering on, and our teams are continually working on delivery. Now, as you can see from that end-to-end, it's a connected end-to-end process, which is perfect from a process mining perspective. But you also, as you're looking here, there are also many processes or sub-processes within the end-to-end. And one we'll look at today is around the demand intake process. As we take requests, maybe from a service catalog or from a demand portal, or we capture ideas from the innovation portal, how we feed those into our central demand pipeline, look to approve them, and then feed those into planning. So as we look at this from a process mining context, there are lots of areas from an end-to-end perspective where process mining will help us refine and optimize the process so we can speed that time to value to our customers. Okay, so Vancouver, this is where we've introduced process mining for strategic portfolio management. And what we're doing in the initial rollout inside Vancouver, we're providing a content pack around one of the processes I mentioned on there, demand management. So inside that content pack, it's going to enable our customers to quickly and effortlessly map out what's happening inside their demand management process in order to identify what's going on, identify where we've got problem areas, and from that, identify opportunities for improvement. One of the added benefits of releasing this new content pack for demand management is it also opens up process mining for the entire end-to-end process flow on strategic portfolio management that I showed on the previous slide, something that was not available to customers prior to Vancouver. So it's a really important step that we're taking in helping organizations look at how we can refine and optimize their delivery of change and innovation. Now, looking at it from a demand management perspective, as I mentioned, in Vancouver, we see the release of the new content pack. Part of that content pack looks at from a summary and insights perspective, so providing a specific dashboard. On that dashboard, we've got defined out-of-the-box goals and KPIs. Obviously, you can add in additional KPIs as you want to do. And we're also providing some example finding rules in terms of how we look to identify improvement opportunities. So looking to establish where demands are going through the process and going through repeated rework loops, maybe where we're actually taking a demand and converting it into a project without having going through an approval, all those sorts of areas which we need to stamp out on, because that's not adhering to what our designed path would be through the solution. So summary and insights gives us a real good start in terms of understanding where we can optimize the demand management process. And the other element to think about is in terms of, as we're doing the mining of the process, so let's imagine I'm looking at my demand management process as it stands today in September 2023. As I've done my analysis, I may identify one or two improvement initiatives that we want to take in order to improve some of the things we found from a bottleneck perspective. having implemented those improvement initiatives, I might then want to go and mine again against my demand management process, say in October, and I then can do a comparison of my process with inside September and October, i.e. after we've implemented our improvements, to see what any changes have been made. So it's really great in terms of being able to see that incremental improvement that we're able to make on these individual processes. Now, what I'm going to do now is come out of PowerPoint and let's actually jump in and show you what this looks like inside Vancouver. So let me just maximize my browser. So as part of Vancouver, as I mentioned, the content pack is around optimizing our demand management process. So I've created a project based on that content. So I'm just going to click on the tile, and that's going to take me into the optimize demand management optimization, and we're going to look at the dashboard. So as we can see at the top here, we've provided some example out the box KPIs, so I can clearly see what my active demands look like flowing through the process. And as an actual process flow, this is one of the key process flows across the ServiceNow platform. If you think about all the different types of requests that can come in, so there's lots of traffic will go through this process. On the right hand side, I've got an analysis in terms of telling me how long things have remained open with inside the demand pipeline. And the fact that this is on an upward trajectory is slightly worrying to me, because what you don't want to see is lots of demands hanging around in your demand pipeline for too long, because it means you're never going to get the value from them. So this dashboard starts to give you that great insight immediately about there's something wrong with this particular process. Now at the top here, I can see, having run the mining over my example data, I've got 215 demands that have been included with inside the scope of what we're mining here. And I can already see that for those 215 demands, we've already got 22 different routes that demands are taking through my process, which obviously cannot be good for an organization wanting to standardize, wanting to optimize the flow of work through the process. So clearly there's work to be done. Now if I scroll down the dashboard, and we look at this area here from an improvement initiatives perspective, improvement opportunities perspective, should I say, we're providing some out-of-the-box finding rules specifically targeted around the demand management process. So as demands come into ServiceNow, they typically have a draft status, and they will then be submitted. And they'll go through a series of states in their life cycle. So they may go to a screening state whereby we request subject matter experts across the organization to come in and provide their input. Once they've gone through screening, it may go to, well, it should go to a qualified state, and it's at the qualified state where we're actually looking to review this particular demand. Think of a demand as like a business case to do something. We're going to have estimates around costs, or estimates around resources that we want to do for this particular activity. And a demand itself may be a request to do a project. It may be a request to do some small operational work. It may be a request to work for a team. So all demands cover all different types of work that could be requested. Once we're qualified, and that qualified, we're either going to reject or we're going to approve. And then from that, we're going to convert that demand into maybe a project or an epic if we're looking at it from an agile perspective, or a change request if it's an operational request and we're linking into service management. So in order to mine through that end-to-end process, these finding rules are then looking for the exceptions we're trying to find. So for example, I want to understand levels of rework that are happening. So imagine I've put in my request, it's gone through screening, it's got to the qualified step, and they've not been able to prove it because I've not provided all the information needed for the approval decision. Maybe I've missed off my cost estimates or something like that, and it has to go all the way back to the draft state. So I want to understand how many times we're going through that rework loop, and how many demands are subject to that iterative nature. I might want to understand if I've got a demand and somebody actually totally bypasses the approval route and automatically turns my demand into a project and people start working on the project without it being approved, I want to know about that. So that's going to be a breach of our SLA process, not conforming to our overall role in the organization. Or I might want to understand where things have actually been approved, but they've not actually gone through the detailed qualification steps. So nobody's actually gone and reviewed the business case alongside everything else to determine we need to go through. Somebody just rubber stamped it. So again, I need to understand all of that. So these are examples of those finding rules we provide out of the box, and align to looking at improvements around improving conformance and improving performance across the process. So let's pick one of these as an example to start with. So I'm interested in this rework, because if I can reduce rework, I can get things through faster. So as you can see, average duration of the rework is 11 months for a bit demand in the demand pipeline, which is obviously not very good. So let's go and let's view that particular rule inside the analyst workbench. Excuse me. So as we can see on here, I've got two demands that fall foul of this particular rule. And I've just looked at my breakdown here, and we categorize demands in different categories. So here I can see I've got strategic and operational demands, so one of each going through this process. And I can clearly see as something comes in from a draft perspective, going through screening, as it gets to screening, it goes to qualified, and then those two in qualified are actually coming back into draft. So I can see I've got that rework route, something I need to do something around, and maybe I might start out and identify an improvement initiative that I want to move forward with. But let's clear that. And now I'm looking at all of my 215 demands going through the process. And I can see on here now, breaking that down by category, I've got 203 strategic demands, 7 which are operational, some for procurement and some for training. But as you can imagine, you can have different categories. Now, a key element then I can then see as I'm looking at this is all the detail around what's going through the demand process. And as I click on various states, I can understand where things are going. So draft either going in directly to screening or going to submitted. If we go look at submitted, we might be interestingly coming back into drafts. Obviously, there's an issue there. And I'll look at the qualified element. I can see when we're making those qualified decisions, we can see some areas are creating projects, i.e. moving forward, and others are being deferred. Maybe we're going to look at that later on. But that's giving me that great analysis in terms of what actually is happening to those 250 demands going through the process. And as you can see at the moment, bit of a mess because of all of those different routes that are currently being taken. So obviously we need that improvement initiative to look at how we can streamline these various activities. The other element we can obviously look at then is from a bottleneck perspective, and look in terms of where we can see our overall bottlenecks inside that particular process. So that gives you that viewpoint in terms of that out of the box content pack, looking at that demand management process and giving you that ability to quickly and easily identify where we've got these various different issues, and being able to very quickly go and analyze and look at what those issues are. So that's there as of Vancouver. Now, one of the things that interested me as soon as I started working with process mining was not only looking at it from a demand management perspective, but let's look at it at a wider element. Let's look at it from an end-to-end perspective. So because we now can apply process mining across all of the SPM process as per that slide I showed, this is just a quick example of something I've set up, which is looking in terms of the end-to-end flow from I've got an idea. As we look at those ideas, the ones I want to progress, I might turn those into demands that we're going to build a business case around. As we approve those demands, I want to execute and start delivering them, I might create a project. And one of the elements with inside ServiceNow is the ability to manage work of different sorts. Now, one of the types of work which is very popular across the user community is what we call hybrid projects, which are traditional waterfall projects with a mix of agile within them. So so what we're looking at here is my projects here will be hybrid projects, and for those hybrid projects, we'll have stories being created, which are going to be then worked on by the development teams. So with inside process mining, what I'm able to do is connect that end to end. So from that initial idea all the way through to the stories that I delivered. So if I start to build this out, we can look now in terms of, let's just reduce the size of that a little bit. So we can see I've got my 18 ideas. Now I can see those ideas are related to different products. I can see that information here. So I can see as the ideas come in and the flows they're taking, and I can see I've got an iterative loop in terms of those ideas as they come in, being reviewed, need more information, going back around an iterative loop. So I can see all of that. Now, as we make the decision in terms of wanting to move that idea forward, I can create a demand from those ideas, and that will then feed into my demand process. And we can see how those 7 ideas we've moved forward now flow through into our demand process. And I can see some have bypassed the submitted stage and gone straight to screening. I can see some from qualified have already gone back into draft. So we got that repeat loop that we were looking at before. But as then I go to qualified and approved, we're then creating our project. So if I move my project box down here, we can then see the relationship with the demands that we've been created and the projects that have then been created from those 7 demands. And now projects, rather than working through a state model like draft, work in progress, etc., what we're looking at from a project standpoint is actually the phases that the project will go through: initiating, planning, executing, controlling. So I can see exactly where those projects are. And then finally, I can look at it in a true end-to-end style. I can see for all of those projects, excuse me, I can see all of the stories that have been created for those projects and now being worked through from so I can now see from the development teams how, as they're now working on those stories, those 9 stories, through their various process model for delivering the stories relating back to the project. So this will then give me a true end-to-end picture of how we're delivering an idea from that initial idea all the way through defining what we want to deliver to the actual execution and the delivery from the development teams, true end-to-end with inside the process mining project, which gives me that ability then to look at how we can optimize that end-to-end and understand where the various bottlenecks are. Okay, so I hope that's given you a flavor for why we're all very excited of including process mining with strategic portfolio management and the obvious advantages that this gives by being able to manage that end-to-end process all together on the single platform. Dan, I think I'll hand back to you now before my voice gives out.
I was going to check to make sure you were okay there for a second. That super impressive, very awesome. Like I'm so excited, and I am positive that all the customers that were asking for this capability are excited as well, or will be excited once they get to see what you just showed there. Not just from a demand perspective, but also that end-to-end view. I think that is a fantastic capability or way to receive things from an organizational perspective. Now, so just open it up. If you've got questions about anything that James just covered there, if you want to throw those into the Q&A portion or put them in the chat, whatever that you might want to do, put them there. We'll do our best to answer them. While you're thinking about your questions and posting them into the chat or the Q&A, I'll just kind of position some additional resources above and beyond what we covered here today. So there is for those of you that are not aware, there is an on-demand training course on the Now Learning site for process mining. It is still named Process Optimization Essentials. We're working on the rename there. So if you go to the Now Learning site, check out or search for Process Optimization Essentials, that you'll find the course. There is a white paper that we've put out there, and we obviously use process mining here at ServiceNow for about, I think it's over 40 processes now that we've mined and found some improvement opportunities within. But we've detailed our journey from a process mining perspective in a white paper. We talked about some of the use cases and findings in that white paper. So check it out if you're interested in seeing how we've done it. There is a community forum that has now been renamed the Process Mining Community Forum. So if you're searching on community for process mining content, look for the Process Mining Forum that just got renamed yesterday, I think. Obviously, you're here, so you know about the Process Mining Academy. This is, I believe, our 18th Academy session. So there's 17 other sessions that dive into other areas, whether it be process mining for field service management, or how to use the histogram that's inside of the process mining workspace, or how to create your first project, or how to use different filtering techniques. There's tons of different sessions out there to help you get more familiar and comfortable with the different capabilities process mining has to offer. We've started a process mining use case series. So what we've learned as we started to go through process mining exercises with different customers, that it's a new muscle for many of us. And while there's powerful capabilities within the solution, how to apply those to answer specific questions that might be having about different inefficiencies, like doing SLA breach analysis, or looking for work that's taking longer to route than resolve, or doing specific intake channel analysis. We've started to post 5-minute recordings that walk through how to use the solution to do those types of analyses. So that's out there on the community site as well. And then there's a really good live on Now session that we did called Getting Started with ServiceNow's in-platform process mining, that walks through the different plugins you need to turn on, how to create your first project, all the different building blocks that you need to know about to get started with the solution. So tons of content out there for you to get started or dig a little bit deeper above and beyond today, if you're interested. So let's go back and we'll just check the Q&A. So happy to hear it, Kelly. Just one, it's not really a question, it's a comment, but Kelly is saying that she's super excited for process mining for SPM, because they're going to be implementing SPM in October. So really happy to hear that one. Let's see. Next question is, how long will this recorded, how long will it take for the recording to get online? Dave, I'll have this recording out there. Probably, I've got a couple of calls right after this one. By the end of today, it'll be up on the community site by the end of today. The slides will also be attached and posted to that community post. The same page that you went to, the process, you can search up ServiceNow Process Mining Academy. That'll take you to the page in which all the prior sessions and the recordings are available, as well as this one, and we'll have it out there by the end of today. Looks like Roman's got his hand up. Roman, I don't know if
yeah.
you got it.
Can you hear
Perfect.
me, Dan?
I can hear you.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I just wanted to ask if I can pose my question like this, because walking the stony trail,
I understand that
typing is a bit hard.
Yes, you're hiking, so feel free to ask.
Yeah. I really like this end-to-end view that you created, but why stopping with development and deploying things? Why not going on to operations and the operations processes until you do chargeback? So you have the whole cycle from idea creation, coming into your business model, and making a real business from the chargeback side. And also, how are you working with ideas that you need to cut back, so as not to hinder or bring problems into your product roadmap? Is this somehow?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, great question. I'll address probably the first one, and then James, maybe I'll lean on you for the second one a little bit. But the reason why we didn't go all the way through is simply just a demo design thing. There's no nothing technical stopping you from doing that. It is one of the beautiful things about having this on the platform itself, is that you have all the data that you need, and the connections are already linked within the data. So creating a visualized process map of looking how all these things are tied together is something that you can do relatively quickly. I'm going to say minutes, but if if you're brand new to how to build out the multi-dimensional maps, it may take you 30 minutes, right? But it's huge. One of the biggest advantages to using our in-platform process mining solution is the fact that we have access to the data already.
Single system of record, actually. Yeah,
exactly.
That's great.
It's speed. And then I don't know, James, if you had any thoughts about the second half of that question.
Yeah. So one of the things on the end-to-end we looked at there was just a really quick example, and it was literally minutes to just connect ideas all the way through the stories.
I see.
But, in terms of like the product roadmap, if I'm planning a product roadmap and those sorts of activities, one of the other process flow areas that we can look to introduce into that model is a new one we've also introduced in Vancouver around a product feedback model. So if you think about all the different types of feedback you might get, and from wherever that may come from, ideas or from emails and all that sort of stuff, that can all now filter through in the process. So we go through a feedback review, sort of consolidation, and then we look at product planning, and then feed that into our decision model before we determine what products we're going to develop and what we're going to get the teams to work on. So all of that can be fed into this process as well.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking this is because everyone sells their fast forward idea implementation path, but nobody thinks about what about cutting back on things, because business can grow, shrink. You have maybe you detour your product roadmap to some new other parts, and this is seldomly shown actually. So this was the reason for my question.
Yeah, and that whole topic around looking to optimize what you're delivering is really what strategic portfolio management is about. So if you think in terms of you have a plan currently of what you want to deliver, and then all of a sudden we've got a change in the priority. We're having to we're cutting budgets. We're moving people from one area of the business to somewhere else in the business, and as a result, you haven't got the capacity to deliver. So what strategic portfolio management is about is enabling you then to look at and identify various options of what your plan could look like based on your known constraints around capacity, funding, timing, and also relations to things like architecture. So that
like simulation and a variation analysis and all this stuff, right?
Yeah, we call it scenario planning, and that allows us to optimize. So one of the things that where process mining fits into this is looking at how we can enable the organization to be more agile with a small a in terms of being adaptive to change by optimizing those processes around how we look at optimizing our product roadmap and doing that scenario planning. So there's lots of benefits that process mining can give into specific areas of the overall end-to-end process.
Well, thanks. Thank you.
James, we have another question that I'm going to let you tackle because I think I just want to make sure we get it right. This process mining for strategic portfolio management, it's not included with SPM Pro, correct? It'll be correct. It's
an add-on to SPM Pro.
Perfect. What I thought, but I just wanted to make sure I was sure. All right. Any other questions? Put them in the Q&A if you can. All right. If not, let's see what I've got here next in the slides. What's next? Perfect. So this was one of the newer enhancements that we added in the Vancouver release, the coverage for SPM. Another really important enhancement in Vancouver is the ability for customers to import external process data and apply our process mining capabilities to that. So for example, let's say you're using a smart recruiters for recruiting and tracking your hiring process there. We can extract the audit log data from that system in a certain format, provide it to ServiceNow in an Excel or a CSV, import it through a wizard-like process, and then visualize it with the process mining solution that you just saw. So we'll be covering that in our next session scheduled for October 20th. and we'll walk through the entire process of loading up data and mining it. It's very, very straightforward. In November, the plan right now is to cover another Vancouver enhancement called automated findings. So as up until Vancouver, you saw James show some examples here today around those improvement opportunities that we provide out of the box in the content packs. They're very rule-based, where you can configure, hey, I want to find all the records that meet this criteria. Well, you can also look at processes and find things in an automated fashion. There's a lot of common inefficiencies. For example, rework, right? Something goes from step A to B to C back to A. Well, we can flag those automatically for you now with our automated findings, or ping pong, things go from A to B to A to B to A, right? We flag those automatically for you, and you can configure it to look at things that have extra steps in the process. So I have one process variant, A, B, C, D, F, and then I have another variant that is very close, but has one additional step, A, B, C, D, E, F. I want to compare those two and see what the impact of that extra step on the process is. So these automated findings are something that are new inside of the Vancouver release. So in that November session, we'll dig into how to configure those and take advantage of those. And then to wrap up the year, we'll have a session on process mining for creator workflows. So a lot of customers have asked, hey, we've built some custom applications. We'd love to apply process mining to those applications. Can you help me understand how to go through that? So we figured we'd get a recording out there as well. So those are the sessions that we have on the schedule. Obviously, if we get an influx of questions about a certain topic, this is always subject to change. We want to make sure we're catering to our customers' asks, but these are the things that we've got planned right now. All right, last chance for romance. Any additional questions that are out there? Anything else you want to chat about before we wrap up for the day?
If you allow, just a funny note,
Yeah.
your untangling of the loops, which you call rework, isn't there a more modern word for it, like collaboration?
Untangling of the rework? Yeah, I guess so.
Just because you mentioned this, breaking up the loops for rework, I just reminded me of people always talking about collaboration, which is like a high frequency back and forth of exchange of information, so which is also a loop actually.
Yeah. It can be that. It can be a quality issue where you've got let's say tickets that are being reopened on a regular basis. It could be
I know.
things,
I just wanted to make fun. Sorry.
Okay. All right, Roman. Perfect. Anyone else? If not, James, thank you so much for your time here today. It's always good to have the expert on a process cover process mining for that process rather than me sometimes stumbling through it. Being able to put that lens of somebody who lives and breathes those processes on a regular basis is really important from a process mining perspective. So really, thank you again for taking the time to do this for us.
No, thank you for inviting me, Dan. And I find process mining a really exciting capability.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Great talk.